everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Giovanna and this is going to be my very first video on my YouTube channel, and I'm just so excited to be able to share with you guys what I personally did on my law school journey. So I'm just going to dive right in, and then towards the end I'll talk more about myself and what this channel is. So first, I will say, forgive my background. I'm in the process of moving, so yeah, just act like that's not even there. But anyways, talking about my law school application journey, I think I'll start with my undergrad experience. And so I started undergrad in 2015 and I graduated in 2020. And I started out as a biology major, then changed to psychology, and I also did a paralegal program while I was completing my degree. And so I would say it wasn't until my junior year when I started getting serious about my law school application. I was so blessed to be able to not only be a part of the paralegal program, but also be a part of clubs at my school devoted towards pre-law students. And so before I even started on my LSAT and looking into how to register and all that other stuff, I spent a lot of time with some of my peers, being able to go to different law school events in Georgia, go to different law schools, like open houses, talk with admission officers and things of that sort. I would also say that I did spend time like shooting DMs to different law students and lawyers locally, just to see what their experience was like, what they did, what they didn't do. So I would definitely say don't be afraid to like put yourself out there and ask other people in that same position or who went through that journey questions about what they did or what they wish they would have done as well. So like I said, it wasn't until my junior year when I got serious about my application process, and the first thing I did was register for an LSAC account, which is the Law School Admission Council, and then I also registered for a fee waiver and was approved. And so once I got that done, I also went ahead and registered for my CAS account as well. And so I want to say after that, I went ahead and started purchasing LSAT materials. And so the first thing I did was go on YouTube and look at what other people use and just try to figure out the best resources that I could personally use at the time, because I was so set on just self-studying. I didn't really have the funds to, I guess, register for a prep course, to pay for a prep course. And so I was like, okay, let me just try out this self-studying and see how it goes from there. So the first two books I bought were the PowerScore Bible, Logical Reasoning, and the PowerScore Bible, Logic Games. And then I also registered for Khan Academy through LSAC. And I was just using that for a few months until I want to say around early 2020. And then that's when I went ahead and registered for a prep course, the LSAT prep course at Georgia State University, which was in person. And so I was doing all of that and felt confident enough to be able to register for the July 2020 LSAT Flex. And so I'm studying and I'm going to my prep course, but it did get cut short in March because of COVID. And so I was like, you know what? I'm taking some practice exams. I'm doing okay. I'm not doing great, but I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to take the exam and just see how it goes. And so I took the exam, and y'all, I did horrible. I made a 136, and I knew that was not about to get me into law school. And so I had to sort of reevaluate everything and just see what exactly am I going to do to get that LSAT score up. And I'm not gonna lie, it was very, very discouraging. I was frustrated. I was sad because I was like, this is something I really want, and I want to make sure that I make a good enough score to go into a good school. And so I really had to reevaluate things and just figure out what to do next. I registered again for another LSAT in October of 2020, and during that time I was still practicing, I was still studying, and getting close to that date, I noticed, you know, my score really isn't going that up. And so once again, reevaluating, trying to figure out what to do. I sacrificed some time at work, so basically I cut some hours at work, and then I made sure to sit down and have a set schedule for studying. And I'll talk more about that like in a separate video. I'll make another video talking about LSAT and how to study and things of that sort. And so getting close to that day, I was like, you know what, I don't feel confident enough to take this test. And I made sure to not pressure myself too much in terms of taking a test. I felt like if I wasn't ready, what's the point of me taking a test if I don't feel ready or if I'm not seeing that improvement that I want to see? And so yes, it was discouraging, but I was also very realistic, and I was like, I'm not about to take this test right now. And so I want to say after that, I registered for another test for January 2021, and I was like, you know what, this is it. That is the last test I'm able to take, because I wanted to make sure my application was out by February 2021, so that I can be admitted to that fall 2021 cycle. So y'all, getting close to the test date again. My score is still not, you know, where it's at, and I had a lot of things going on. I was still transitioning from graduating. I graduated that summer of 2020, transitioned from graduating, still working, still just figuring out life, having family issues, health issues. There was just a lot going on, and so I really had to sort of just be realistic. I was like, okay, if I am not applying for the 2021 admission cycle, I will apply for the 2022 admission cycle. And during that time, I was very pressed about only taking one gap year, and I do not understand why. Looking back, I really don't understand why I was so pressed. But I will say, definitely take your time. Like, you know yourself best. And so for me, I think the biggest thing for me was like, I was in a rush. I just wanted to go back to school and get it over with. But I had to be realistic, because if I'm not making that score, then how can I get into a good law school? And I know they say, like, you know, other factors should also be taken into account regarding a law school application, which is true, but I knew my LSAT would be the biggest factor. So getting close to that January 2021 exam, I also realized, well, the rest of my application isn't completed either. Like, I still had to do my personal statement, I still had to do my resume, maybe do optional essays. And so I was like, okay, if I take the test January 2021 and I'm still not really done with my additional requirements, then I don't know, like, I feel like I'll be applying too late in the cycle. And I don't want to discourage anybody, you know, like they do say it's best to apply earlier if you can. But for me, I was like, okay, getting into a good school is my #1 goal, and being able to get scholarships is another goal as well. And so, and I also didn't want to rush myself. I wanted to make sure that I was putting out the best application possible. So once again, reevaluating, I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for the 2022 admission cycle. That way I can have time to not only get my score up even more, but also complete the rest of my application. And so going from that January 2021 exam, I rescheduled to June of 2021. And between that time, I went ahead and changed up my LSAT study materials as well. So I was still using the PowerScore Bibles, that logical reasoning book, and the logic games book, but I also did add the LSAT trainer. Now, what I will say about the LSAT trainer was that it was very general and specific to me. I kind of put that book to the side, the LSAT trainer to the side, and just stuck with the PowerScore books. But for reading comprehension, I did purchase the Manhattan Prep reading comp book, and I also did register for 7 Sage as well. And 7 Sage was actually really good. I will say, if you are approved for a fee waiver from LSAC, you can apply that fee waiver to some of the LSAT prep companies like 7 Sage or LSAT Max or Blueprint. They do have their own type of instructions and requirements for that. So just go on their website and look at that if you are approved for a fee waiver for LSAC, because that did take some of the cost away from my 7 Sage prep course services. And so I'm using those 4 resources. My score is improving, and I'm still at this time only focusing on my LSAT. I did write a draft for my personal statement, but I wrote it and I put it to the side because I'm like, I need to get this score up. This is my main priority. And looking back, I kind of regret that. I should have been working on my personal statement as well, but I'll talk more about that later on. And so coming close to that June 2021 exam, I was like, okay, you know what? I think I could do a little bit better. And I was like, maybe 4 more weeks, you know, would help me get my score up even more. So at that time, my goal score was a 160, coming from that 136. And so I registered for the August 2021 exam. And I was like, you know what, this is it, because my application needs to be out by December 2021. And I was like, I can't be sitting here going back and forth trying to add more months to this exam. So August comes, I'm feeling a little bit more confident. And like I said, sacrifices, you know, my birthday was in August and I was like, I can't really, you know, celebrate that much because I need to get this test over with. And so I took the exam and I ended up making a 159, 1 point below my goal score of 160. And so I was definitely very content and just very grateful and thankful to God. Just being able to get my score up. I know it wasn't like in the 170s, but I was okay with the 159. So if you are in a similar position where you are studying for your LSAT and you're not seeing that score increase, listen, I know exactly how you feel, but you really just got to keep going at it, believe in yourself, and know that you can improve on the LSAT. Take my story for example, going from that 136 to that 159 in 1 year. It's possible, so just keep going and believe in yourself. Also, like I said earlier, I will make a separate video talking more about the LSAT. But now I'll be talking about letters of recommendations. For me, I knew who my LORs were going to be ahead of time. So before I graduated in summer of 2020, I just sent them both an email just letting them know that I would be applying to law school soon and that I would love for them to write a letter of recommendation for me. And so what I did was basically just go on the LSAC website, figure out the instructions on how to submit a LOR, and I sent them an additional email just letting them know like this is what they need to do and this is how they are to submit it. I will also say that I did waive my rights to read my LORs, and looking back, y'all, I really don't remember why I did that. I'll provide more clarification on that maybe in the caption below or in a separate video. But yeah, I waived my rights to read my LORs because LSAT gives you the option to either read your LORs or not, and I think law schools are able to see if you read them or not. So I'll provide more clarification on that, but basically my recommenders submitted my LORs. They sent me a follow-up email saying they submitted them, and then I sent an additional email just thanking them for taking out the time to be able to do that for me. So next I'll be talking about transcripts. It's pretty straightforward. Just make sure that you go on the LSAC website. I think they have an article or a page called requesting transcripts, and it gives you the details on how exactly to submit those transcripts. For me personally, I waited until I graduated in summer 2020 to send my final transcript to LSAC, and I think it processed within 1 or 2 weeks. So I will say another thing, make sure that you are sending in these documents ahead of time to LSAC, because once they do receive them, they also have to process them. So that goes for your transcript and also your letters of recommendations. And so I did that, and I think my school participated in one of the transcript services that LSAC listed. So I know for me, I still wanted some more clarification. So I just reached out to my school's registrar's office, and they actually walked me through how to submit the transcript to LSAC. So next is personal statements. Like I said earlier, y'all, I wish that I would have started on my personal statement way ahead of time instead of waiting last minute right after I took my final LSAT. And so like I said, I did one draft and I sort of put it to the side and never looked at it again. I was just so focused on the LSAT. So after I took my LSAT in August of 2021, my goal was to submit my application by early December of 2021. And so right after my test, I got started on my personal statement. And so I looked back to that draft and I was like, you know what, I'm not using this. And so I just scratched the whole draft and made a whole another personal statement draft. So what I did first was researched or looked up how to write a personal statement. I basically went on YouTube, I Googled different articles just to see what law school admission officers are looking for in a personal statement. So I want to say what I did first, since I did scratch that draft, was basically jot down some topics, and then from there I started writing. I wasn't too concerned at first about how much I was writing. I just wanted to make sure I was letting everything out, and then from there I cut down on my essay. I will also say I was a little worried about who was going to provide feedback on my personal statement. I know that you can ask a friend or like a family member or a professor or someone else to be able to provide feedback, but for me, I wanted to make sure I was reaching out to somebody who at least went through a similar process. And so I did reach out to one of my friend's sister who was a Harvard Law graduate, as well as a mentor from a law school mentoring program called PEMBI, and both individuals did provide feedback and review on my essay. I will also say there are resources out there, like different services that provide editing and feedback on personal statements. But I will say be careful with that, because at the end of the day, it is your essay. So just make sure whatever feedback you're getting is beneficial to your paper. So personal statements, just make sure that you take your time. If you do have the time, take it from me, start early if you can, because that's one thing I regret. I wish I would have started earlier than I did. But I will make a separate video talking more about personal statement and resources and different things you could use and some of the techniques that I personally use, as well as a video talking about the LSAT like I said earlier. But now I'm going to be talking about additional essays or optional essays. And the first optional essay most students do is the diversity statement. So for me, I personally did not write a diversity statement because honestly, I was on a time crunch. And I did feel like my personal statement did do a good job talking about my diverse factors. So I sort of felt like writing a diversity statement would have kind of stretched out those narratives. It wasn't really anything new I was adding. And so I made a decision not to write one. And at first I was kind of worried about not writing one. I was like, oh my gosh, like most people do write one, but at the end of the day, it's your application. So the last thing I'll be talking about are addendums. So addendums are basically additional documents or statements you can provide to law schools, just giving them more clarity regarding your application or giving them more information regarding anything that may be helpful when they are reviewing your application. So for me, I did write a character and fitness addendum regarding a minor traffic violation. Some schools require that you do disclose information like that, but it is all included in the actual law school application. So make sure that you are reading instructions and that character and fitness part, because it will be very important in terms of when you do graduate law school and go into bar review. I will say the other addendum I did write was a transcript addendum. So basically from undergrad, my paralegal program certification wasn't stated on my transcript. And so I did let the law schools know that it wasn't on my transcript and that these were the following courses I took that were required for the certification. But later on, I found out that it was an error from my school with it not being on my transcript. So I had to resubmit another transcript to LSAC. They sent another law school report to the law schools I did apply to, but that's a whole nother story. So basically with addendums, just make sure you also work on those if you do need to provide those. There's different addendums. There's transcript addendums, GPA addendums, LSAC addendums. So definitely just make sure you figure out if you do need to write one, if it is worth it, and if it's going to be beneficial to your application. One thing I almost forgot to talk about was resumes. And so for me, I basically did the same thing I did with my personal statement. So I researched online how to write a clean and concise resume for law schools. The first thing I used was my resume that I usually use for work, and then I went from there to be able to recreate another resume for law school. And so I will make another video talking more about that. This video is more brief, just talking about what really happened in my law school application journey, but I will make another video also talking about resumes and also posting my personal resume that I used for law school. So I think I'm gonna end the video there talking about my personal application process. I will say make sure you do look at the actual law school applications themselves, because that is something that I sort of waited until sort of last minute to do. It wasn't until I was started on my personal statements and stuff that I started looking at the law school applications themselves. But it's very important that you do so ahead of time, because that's going to give you all the instructions and formatting requirements and other things that you need for certain law schools you're applying to, because not every law school is the same. Not every law school requires the same documents or the same information. So make sure you definitely do look at that ahead of time. So basically, on your LSAC account, you're able to compile a list of law schools you're interested in, and you can always add and delete. And just you can look at the instruction page and look through the application itself to figure out what you need to provide and what you need to do for your essays. So that is all that I have for y'all in this video today. Thank you so much for tuning in. My final thoughts, my final tips are start early. If you can, start early, definitely in the process. But if not, definitely just give yourself grace, because I know for me, I had set times and set schedules and this and that. But at the end of the day, the main goal is that you are able to provide a good application that really shows how much of a good candidate you would be for these law schools. So guys, just relax. I've been in those shoes before. If you are stressed, if you are overwhelmed, take your time, believe in yourself, and know that you can get through this. Don't be discouraged. I was at that point at one time. Don't be discouraged, don't be doubtful. Have faith and trust that you can make it through this application process. And like I said earlier throughout the video, I will make additional videos talking about the LSAT, personal statement, also how to choose which law schools to apply to, which factors I took into account, and just more videos regarding law school itself. And so the main takeaway I want you guys to have from this video is to just be encouraged and to keep going, to not doubt yourself. My main purpose with this channel is just to be able to not only document my law school journey, but also talk about my Christian faith and other interests as well. I will say I do have a page on Instagram, an organization called Black Women for Law. So you guys can follow me on there if you have any questions, any concerns, if you just want to say, hey girl, just shoot me a DM and I will respond back. So thank you guys so much, and please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.